fi Bayt al-Lahm. You prayed in Bayt al-Lahm. What is this in English? Bethlehem. Bethlehem is Bayt Lahm. If you didn't know, now you know. وبيت اللحم بناحية بيت المقدس. And Bayt al-Lahm or Bethlehem is by close to where? By Bayt al-Muqaddas. حيث ولد عيسى عليه السلام ابن مريم. So therefore, one of our traditions has that he is born in Bethlehem. We also have other tradition because Quran mentions about when Sayyidah Maryam was pregnant, فَحَمَلَتْهُ فَانْتَبَذَتْ بِهِ مَكَانًا قَصِيًّا. When she conceived him and she withdrew with him to a remote place. مَكَانًا قَصِيًّا. Where is this مَكَانًا قَصِيًّا? Tradition, some of the tradition have, it was Iraq. It was very far. She went to Sham, for example, different areas. Then she went to Iraq. Some of the other traditions specify Karbala. So we have different traditions where Prophet Isa alayhi salam was born either Bethlehem or Iraq. But regardless, these are very important, facts for us that we regard that our Prophet prayed. He was instructed, Rasulullah prayed where Prophet Isa alayhi salam gave birth. So this is an important matter for us. Yes, even Christians themselves, Orthodox, for example, might celebrate Christmas in January 7th, I believe. Others do December 25th. That day exactly is not of much importance exactly, to figure out. That occasion is important. The fact that as Muslims also, the wiladat of Prophet Isa alayhi salam is important, just how his place of birth, that where he was born, is important for us. Yes, but now it comes to the differences. What differences are there? Tonight I'm going to recite to you 2 verses of the Holy Quran. And if you want to know one of the main differences between Islam and Christianity, I advise you to recite Surah Al-Nisa, verse 171, and Surah Al-Nisa, verse 172. It's very clear about the differences. So we said that first verse that Rasulullah used in his letters, Kalimatun sawa, qul ya ahlan kitab, ta'alaw ila kalimatin sawa, come to a word that is equitable between us, which was in Ali Imran 64. So we said the similarities, and I advise you, to those that are Christian, those that do not know much about Islam, talk about these similarities, these 8, 9 points that I just mentioned. Talk to them. Many of them don't know them, that we believe in these miracles, that we believe in these miraculous events. A side note for us as followers of Ahlul Bayt, some ask about, what about wilayat of the Imams, wilayat takwiniyah of the Imams? Do the Imams have authority over the universe? Are these traditions that we have that the Imams did miracles, for example, are they true? Yes. Yes, they are true. When you have Prophet Isa alayhi salam perform all these miracles, why would it be impossible for an Imam to do these, for example, when they both are selected from Allah for the mission? So therefore, we see that there's no problem when it comes to having wilayat, that the Imams alayhi salam do miracles. Rasulullah, some have gathered that he himself has done 3,000, maybe 4,000 miracles. Not only Mi'raj, not only the Holy Quran, but the future prophecies that he gave. All these are miracles that Rasulullah did. 3,000 or 4,000 miracles from, it's actually, from Sunni sources, 3,000 or 4,000. So what are the differences? We'll talk about some of the differences, and we'll talk about some of the words of wisdom in Shia Hadith from Prophet Isa alayhi salam. In case you miss church or something, you'll be able to, inshallah, benefit from here. Ya Ahl al-Kitab, la taqlu fi dinakum. The first 171 is this. O people of Scripture, do not commit excess when it comes to your religion. Do not exaggerate. Don't do qulub. Qulub is the word that is used here. Qulub means to say something that is not true, to exaggerate. We actually had people that used to exaggerate the maqam and position of the Imams. We had people that used to say, for example, Imam Ali, na'udhu billah, is God. Or that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is God. Or other Imams were God. This is wrong. Or we might have others. Maybe they worship. We never worship the Imams. This is qulub. This is not allowed. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam also talks about, our Imams talk about the dangers of those who exaggerate. And we have to be very careful when it comes to our poetry, when it comes to reciting for Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, that we, of course, never worship them. We accept them as creation of Allah. So do not do qulub, do not exaggerate. And as we have, the Yahud also did qulub. This is, the Quran says, they said Uzair ibn Allah, وقالت النصارى المسيح ibn Allah. They said Uzair is the son of Allah. Masih, Christians say Masih is the son of Allah. So this is the first, part of the verse. وَلَا تَقُولُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْحَقِّ. Only say what is true when it comes to Allah. Do not exaggerate. إِنَّمَا الْمَسِيحُ عِيسَى ibn Maryam رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. Know that he is a Rasul, he is a messenger. Jesus alayhi salam is a messenger. أَلْغَاهَا إِلَى مَرْيَمْ وَرُوحٌ مِّنْ. And we have directed, his word of there's Allah and his word, which he directed to Mary, and a soul created of a command from him. So he was born miraculously. It was a command of Allah. He said, be, and it was. Then the Quran continues, so believe in Allah and his messengers. وَلَا تَقُولُوا ثَلَاثًا. Quran very clearly says this is the difference. وَلَا تَقُولُوا ثَلَاثًا. We accept everything so far about his miraculous birth, about the modesty of Sayyidah Maryam. All of this we accept, and the miracles of Prophet Isa. But here is the difference. You cannot say the Trinity exists. You cannot say that Allah has three. Have you ever thought about why it is impossible to say Allah or in the Trinity, even though there's going to be different analogies today? I had a reverts discussion, and they try to give, some Christians try to give an example of water and, for example, steam, and, for example, ice, all being one thing in reality, but yes, they're in different forms. This is like an example of the Trinity. They asked this about me. And I said, first of all, analogies are not a way in logic. They don't bring you certainty. Satan was the first one to use an analogy. He says, you have created Adam from dirt. You have created me from fire. Why should I? I'm higher than who has been created from dirt. So therefore, qiyas, or analogy, reasoning by analogy, does not bring you to ilm, to knowledge, one. Two, who says that, this analogy is correct? It applies to God. Water, gas, for example, and ice. Three, when you say water, gas, and ice, obviously water has some qualities that ice doesn't. Ice has some qualities that water and, for example, steam don't. One is a liquid, for example. One is a solid, for example. One is a gas, for example, in the gas form. Water can go places, for example, it does not has limitations. You cannot walk on water. You can walk on ice. There are things that ice does, water doesn't, for example. So I gave this example that this is limitations. Why do you have ice, water, and steam? These are because of limitations. Does it make sense then Allah would be in three components, and that every three of these, one of them would do something that the other doesn't? That is limitations. Because we say that Allah is needless, Allah is unlimited. When you say there's three components to God, it means that one is doing something that the other isn't. So therefore, it's not logical. So this thing that, the Trinity is three, or some give an example of the egg, some give example of this, what I just said, it still means that there is need in this God. There's limitation in this God. And the Allah that we believe in is Allah that is sufficient. Allah that does not need two or three or four. There's no more room, we can say, no more space, because it's unlimited. There's no more need for two or three or other components. And if you do have components, you're in need of those components. So this is some of the works that some of the ulama gave, were examples that they gave, or speech that they gave when it came to this verse. وَلَا تَقُولُوا ثَلَاثًا. Imam Rida alayhi salam, in the same way, when it came to Isa alayhi salam, he had arguments. And one of the arguments that he posed to one of the leaders of the Christians, just paraphrasing, that he said that Jesus alayhi salam was very good, but he just didn't do one thing, for example. Just one thing he didn't do. He says he didn't, according to you, he didn't worship. He's very good, but just didn't worship. He says, what do you mean? We say Jesus worshiped. What do you mean? He says, then he asked, then who did he worship? Who did he worship? And then right there, he was dumbfounded, stuck. Who did he worship? Did he worship himself? If he's God, who did he worship? So therefore, we see, وَلَا تَقُولُوا ثَلَاثًا إِنْتَهُ خَيْرًا لَكُمْ. And if you leave this, you will be left alone. It will be good for you. It will be good for you. إِنَّمَا اللَّهُ إِلَهٌ وَاحِدٌ. Our Allah is one Allah. Alhamdulillah, we are in a religion, believe in a way, in true monotheism, a powerful Lord, a Lord that does not need parts, a Lord that does not have any type of limitations. Then Quran continues, I'm just going to go to this part. لَنْ يَسْتَنْكِفْ الْمَسِيحَ أَنْ يَكُونَ عَبْدَ اللَّهِ. Never would Masih disdain to be a servant of Allah. Verse 172. Never would he say that I'm not a servant of Allah. This is the fact that the Quran uses many times Jesus, son of Maryam. Jesus, son of Maryam, says that he is the creation of Allah. وَلَا الْمَلَائِكَ الْمُقَرَّبُونَ وَمَنْ يَسْتَنْكِفْ عَنْ عِبَادَتِهِ وَيَسْتَكْبِرْ. And whoever disdains his worship and is arrogant, he will gather them to himself altogether. So this last part of this verse is that Isa alayhi salam would never disdain by saying, I'm a slave of Allah. Interesting to know is that Quran here says that those who disdain from worship of Allah equates it with arrogance. Did you ever look at this, that one of the most arrogant creatures is mankind? And mankind is also one of the most in need of creatures. Imagine if we didn't have our homes, if we didn't have this protection, our shoes, for example, our coats or whatever, and they told us to go out in the wilderness, what would happen? How long would we survive in this wilderness, for example, without shoes, without clothes? The forest, for example, they don't need us, right? But we need the forest. We're in need. The sun doesn't need us. We're in need of the sun, right? But yet, even though we're the most in need of the creatures of Allah, just to breathe, just to live, just to eat, we are the most arrogant. We are the most arrogant. So therefore, those who are the humble ones, they were the slaves of Allah. And there's no, Isa alayhi salam would never disdain from saying that I am the slave of Allah. And this is what we say about our Prophet in Tashahhud. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. I bear witness that he's a servant, he's a slave, and then he's his messenger. This is a little short presentation about the similarities and the differences of Islam. The main difference is that true monotheism. And the main difference is believing in the final messenger, which is inside the Bible as well. Now, we're going to finish tonight's discussion because as Muslims, we're always trying to look for advice from the prophets. We're trying to enhance our lives, make ourselves live a little bit better each day. I'm going to end tonight's discussion with 4 hadith from Prophet Isa alayhi salam. Maybe it's not in the Bible, maybe Christians don't have it, but we believe the Imams are warathul anbiya. We believe that the prophets gave inheritance of knowledge to the Imams. And the Imams have books. In these traditions I'm going to read, how do we know Prophet Isa alayhi salam said this? It's from Imam Sadiq. They had books, that in these books had the sayings, for example, of what the prophets before them did. Also, the Imams are warath in the way that they have, for example, the staff of Musa alayhi salam, the ring of Sulaiman, or some of the traditions we have. They have the physical articles of the prophets as well. Not only do they have the knowledge, but also they have the physical properties of some of the prophets. So the first tradition I want you to pay attention, especially during this holiday time where there's lots of gathering, lots of fun, lots of happiness, which is good, is how to reflect from Prophet Isa alayhi salam. That a Muslim, a worshipper of Allah, should always be reflecting. The tradition has this. Allah the Exalted revealed to Jesus alayhi salam, son of Mary, O Jesus, offer me tears from your eyes. Allah says, offer me tears. Habli min aynak ad-dumu. Give me tears. And humility from your heart. Allah wants two things. From your eyes tears. From your heart, humility. Very simple, but hard. Anoint your eyes with the kohl of sorrow. Kohl is like a liner that you use for the eyes. It's actually allowed. Women are allowed to wear it. Men sometimes in some countries also use this as well. It's just a liner for right here. Do not go more than that, but it's just eyeliner for here. Anoint your eyes. I hope from this you just didn't get the makeup part. You get the actual tradition. Anoint your eyes with the kohl of sorrow. Make yourself, feel sorrow. Huzn, b'mayl al-huzn. Why would we be sorry? Sorrow for what? Why would we feel down? Sorrow is actually a good feeling to have. Not this sorrow means that, that I don't have self-confidence. It's not talking about that necessarily. Sorrow is that huzn that a person has in regards, one aspect of it is to the hereafter. When you think right now, and I tell you, there is a hellfire that we will see, and the Quran mentions that we will be warid of, we will enter. But, inshallah, we won't, enter it forever, we'll just see it. This is awaiting for us. Or the tradition says, for example, that at the Day of Judgment, they show the position of the believer, and they show him the position of hell. It said that was your position, because when God created you, He created two positions, one in hell, one in heaven. It says that was your place in hell. And the believer looks at it and becomes so happy that he would, for example, die of happiness that I didn't get that position in hell forever. And then he shows, for example, the disbeliever, the one who has done sins, he shows his position in heaven. If you were to believe, if you were to behave properly, if you wouldn't oppress and commit genocide, this would be your place, for example. This would be heaven. And from sadness and huzn, they cry so much, if they could, they would die from that huzn and grief. So we have to have huzn. We have to have grief to some aspect, that there is this danger in front of us. Stand by the graves, the tradition. وَقُمْ عَلَى قُبُورِ الْأَمْوَاتِ. These are tradition from Prophet Isa. Stand by the graves of the dead and call out to them with a loud voice, so that you may take a lesson from them. Say, indeed, I will join them among those who come later. Soon I will be joining you. Inni lahiqun bihim fil lahiqin. Soon I will join you. Go to the graveyard. When you go to the cemetery, did you ever think of this? Did you say to yourself, soon I will be joining you? Maybe it is, hopefully it's 100 years from now, but we never know. So therefore, this is a way to reflect. Eyes, give to Allah eyes that cry, a heart that is humble, have sorrow, anoint your eyes with huzn, go to the graves and say, soon I will be joining you. About the intellect, Prophet Isa alayhi salam, how important it is to raise children or ourselves that are good, that are studying well, that they are ones that would like to study and learn. Actually, when you look at one of the differences between the smart person and a not a smart person, it is what? They say that the intelligent person loves to learn. Because learning for that person that is not intelligent is frustrating. They don't like to learn. But one sign that someone is of high intelligence is that they like to learn. They want to learn. They're curious. They always ask questions. If you see your children asking questions, answer their questions. Explain to them. We see in the tradition, Prophet Isa alayhi salam, with all his miracles, he says that tradition passed from all his miracles that he says, I treated the sick and they were healed by Allah's permission. And the tradition we have, by Allah, bi'idhnillah. I cured the blind. Someone sick, cured them. The blind, I cured them. The leper, I cured them. I dealt with the dead and they came back to life with Allah's permission. But I treated the fool and I was unable to reform him. I treated the fool, وَعَالَجْتُ الْأَحْمَقِ, that is the Arabic, فَلَمْ أَقْدَرْ عَلَى إِصْلَاحِهِ. That person that is foolish, that person that doesn't always want, for example, his intellect to not run his life, to not administer his life, to do whatever he wants. That ahmaq, the one that wants to do, doesn't have any control, doesn't have any maybe say control of himself. I was not able to treat him. So this is very important for us. The second tradition from him is the role of the intellect, to be of those that are ulul albab, whose lives are by the intellect. That they think before they do something. They plan for themselves. They know they're in the world for a little bit, and that is the smartest person. The smartest person is the one, the wisest is the one who's planned for the hereafter. Two more traditions, and inshallah we'll end it tonight. This tradition is about the need to raise righteous children. It's an interesting story. Jesus ﷺ passed by a grave where the person buried was being punished. He saw, again, from his ilm of Nabuwwat that that person in the grave was being punished. Later he passed by this same grave. So once he went, he says he's being punished. Then he passed by it and saw that the punishment ceased. He said, "O Lord, I passed by the grave last year, and its inhabitant was being punished. Now I passed by it, and the punishment has stopped." 1 year. Allah mentions, فَأَوْحَى اللَّهُ جَلَّ جَلَالُهُ إِلَيْهِ يَا رُوحَ اللَّهِ قَدْ أَدْرَكَ لَهُ وَلَدٌ صَالِحٌ. Allah gave him a good son. God gave him a righteous son. And who has reached maturity, he repaired a pathway and sheltered an orphan. He repaired a pathway and sheltered an orphan, so I forgave him because of what his son did. Very interesting, because of what his son did. He was being punished in the grave. But his son repaired a pathway, sheltered an orphan. The parent is now not being punished in where? We're the most dangerous parts, which is barzakh, the purgatory. So if you want to have capital for yourselves, and Allah has blessed you with children, and you spend time with them, and you give them a righteous upbringing, one that is balanced. You're not too, in a way that you want them not to be, how Shaykh Mutahari mentions, that it's not a passive type of taqwa. It's not a taqwa they're just used to living in an aquarium, for example. That when they go to college, they lose everything, for example. They get eaten by the sharks. That's what happens when you take a fish that's raised in an aquarium and throw them in the ocean. You have to, in a way, raise them with an active taqwa. What is an active taqwa? Not that you expose them to all haram environments, but you raise them in a way that after that Islamic school they went to, after that homeschooling, wherever, public schooling, wherever they went to, that even if they live by themselves, you don't have to do this, I don't necessarily recommend it, but even if they have a dormitory or an apartment by themselves and they live completely away, they will have taqwa. That is your goal, to raise them in a way that their taqwa will be their shield for them. Their taqwa will be a fortress for them. This is the comparisons Imam Ali gave. The fourth is this, the last tradition from Prophet Isa alayhi salam. And I'm not sure, I don't think that the other religions have these traditions. These are, treasures that we have from the imams that have preserved the sayings of the other prophets, from the admonition that Allah gave to Jesus. Isa alayhi salam, O Jesus, or Isa alayhi salam, yes, Isa alayhi salam, Ya Isa, اعقل وتفكر وانظر في نواحي الأرض. Be wise, reflect, and observe the corners of the earth, and see this. كيف كان عاقبة الظالمين. See what happened to the oppressors. What was the fate of the wrongdoers? Isa alayhi salam is, we said, Baytul Laham, or that area is Palestine. So therefore he's Palestinian. And today, in this year that we're ending, many people ask, what's going on? They're oppressing, committing genocide. What's going on with the oppressed? What's going on with the oppressor? We learn from this tradition from Isa alayhi salam. He says, go and search the world and look, reflect and observe. كيف كان عاقبة الظالمين. What happened to the oppressors? All those Pharaohs and, for example, Namruds and the likes of them, what happened to them at the end? Yes, we think that maybe for this last year, this genocide that has been taking place, we want it to stop. We want the oppressors to be removed, from this power that they have. But Allah is the best of planners. Allah knows what to do. We do what is our, you know, what is our, right, or what is our duty. We perform what is our duty. The rest is up to Allah. If we do not help the oppressed, then we will be, in a way, committing, part of that, allowing some of that sin to happen. So therefore, we do what is right, and those who are fighting against oppression, they do what is right. The outcome is up to Allah. But that opportunity to fight against oppression, that choice that they make, that is from Allah. Because the muwahhid and the monotheist looks at his own resources that Allah has given him through his heart, through his iman, not necessarily through the resources of the material. So therefore, we understand that we look at the rights of what happens, the kayfa kana aqibatu al-zalimin, what happens to the fate of the wrongdoers, and they will be in the way, having a bad end. We ask Allah to give us, inshallah, eyes that cry, inshallah, a heart that is submissive, an aql and intellect that is governing ourselves, righteous children, inshallah, and to give victory to those who are fighting against oppression. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ya Allah, we ask you because of this night, it is the night of dua. It is our last dua kumail this year, that any sin, any shortcoming we had, inshallah, this year, Allah forgive our shortcomings, forgive our sins, give us, inshallah, a good year next year, one with piety, one with righteousness. Those who are not married, help them get married. Those who are wanting children, give them righteous children, inshallah. Protect our living family members, inshallah. Have rahmah and mercy to those who have passed away. Allah grant everyone's hawa'ij and their du'as, inshallah, and expedite the return of Imam al-Zaman, Ajallah ta'ala Fajr Sharif, with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I want to say salam to the Imams. Also do salam to the prophets too, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu ala Adam, Safatullah. Assalamu ala Nuh, Nabiyullah. Assalamu ala Ibrahim, Khalilullah. Assalamu ala Musa, Kalimullah. Assalamu ala Isa, Ruhullah. Assalamu alayka ya Rasulallah. Assalamu alayka ya khayra khalqillah. Assalamu alayka ya Safiyullah. السلام عليك يا محمد بن عبد الله خاتم النبيين. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب وصي رسول الله. السلام عليك يا فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليكما يا سبطي الرحمة سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين سيد العابدين. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي باغر العلم. السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد الصادق. السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر الطاهر الطور. السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى الرضا. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي التقي. السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد النقي. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي. السلام على الوصي من بعد. اللهم صل على نورك وسراجك وولي وليك ووصي وصيك وحجتك على خلقك. اللهم